Another reason I wanted to talk to you, though, is that you are a very pragmatic thinker. I think that you are somebody who doesn't take a look at like, here's what the creator economy platform industry has done to traditional media, and this sucks. You say, well, maybe it sucks, but there are ways forward, and I can figure them out, and I can show you, reader, listener, viewer, whatever, the way forward. Have you always been a kind of teacher like this?
Yeah, and I would go so far as to say it's not just maybe it sucks, but here's what you can do. It's going further to say, what if this is actually the best possible time to be a writer? What if we're actually in the best possible time?
Say more.
Well, I just think because I have like a non-traditional educational background, I dropped out of high school when I was 17 due to depression and anxiety. I went to community college. I went to acting school. I built an entire career as a writer using the internet. I'm kind of a self-taught writer. I was kind of in the right place at the right time on LiveJournal in the early 2000s, but the internet made my whole career as a writer possible. And so fast forward 20 years, I still feel like my mission is to help other writers do something similar, is like to circumvent the gatekeepers by figuring out how to create content and build your own audience. So I'm still doing the same thing I was doing 20 years ago, but we're in like an interesting moment where the creator is actually being noticed and people are noticing that the gatekeepers that the gates are being lowered or that the gates don't exist like they used to.
I wonder if your non-traditional background makes you less precious about it all, because I think that's something I find with lots of creative people who want to, make a living, find a way to make a living through their work and within the creator economy, but are wary of selling out or something like that. And there's often a feeling of preciousness, which I don't think you have.
Yeah. And there's a lot of elitism, like because I come from creative writing world, a lot of people in creative writing world have gone through the MFA system. So they've gotten MFAs in creative writing and they see that as a stepping stone toward book publishing. That first you have to go to one of these programs. There are over 200 of these programs. But in my estimation, these programs train you for a career working in the programs, not necessarily for a career publishing books. So I was always interested in like finding out, how does book publishing work? Like I'm just interested in how things work. And I've always had this attitude of like, if I can figure out how it works, if I can figure out the mechanics of it. I have this memory of a boyfriend of mine from years ago was into motorcycles, and I would watch him take apart his motorcycle for fun and put it back together again. Like he enjoyed that. And I thought that's what I like to do with books. Like I like to take books apart and see how they're constructed and help other writers learn how to make them. That's the part I really enjoy. So it's not so that I can have like a prestige. I'm not doing it for the prestige. I'm doing it for the love of books.
And that was not a plug for your book, Land of Enchantment, correct?
See, you really did your homework. You really did.
It's the one thing I could do. You recently wrote actually not so recent, but your most popular post on Substack is writing versus content. And the last post I published as we speak was with Alicia Kennedy, who takes a staunch stance that she is a writer, not a creator. So that was very much on my mind as I was reading that piece. And you wrote it as sort of so you wrote this, I guess, in like September, I think 2024, because it was a response to Emily Sundberg's then recent piece, Machine in the Garden, and Ted Gioia's Death of the Magazine. And I want to ask your definition of writing versus content. But first, my impression of what your definition is that writing is essays, poems, short stories, novels, and content is digital posts, which could be written, audio, or video, but that are to the purpose of promoting something else, such as writing.
Yeah, I like your definition very well. And I think if I remember correctly, Emily Sundberg's piece was basically like, why is everything on Substack just like a teenage girl's unedited diary?
Yeah.
So it's like making fun of that kind of content that has no editing at all. And then the opposite of that argument is Ted Gioia saying like, the New Yorker is among us. Like Ted Gioia is saying like, this is the golden age for the best writing of our time on
Substack is magazines.
Right. Substack is magazines. And I think it's both. And the thing where I think creative writers get frustrated is they get on Substack and they start publishing short stories on Substack. And they're like, why have I not amassed a following the way Ted Gioia has amassed a following? Where are my tens of thousands of fans for my short stories? But a short story is like a little piece of literature. I know for myself, I only read short fiction in print. I'll read a New Yorker short story. I will never read it on Substack because I consume the internet in a different way than print media.
It's for away from screens.
Yeah, exactly. And I like reading poetry. Poetry is an interesting category that straddles, I think, content and
well, you've
writing.
Published poetry on Substack.
I've published poetry on Substack. I also am a fan of some of the Instagram poets. I like Mary Oliver's Drunk Cousin on Instagram. I think she does that really well. So I think poetry can straddle the two categories, but I think of writing as like the kind of work that I polish over time, that's professionally edited. It's my art. I don't think of my Substack as my art. Like my Substack is something that I write in about 2 hours every Sunday.
It's like it's steam from the valve.
Yeah, it's steam from the valve, but it's also another way that I think creative writers can think about it is creative writers know when they have a book come out, they have to write these essays adjacent to the book. They have to try to pitch opinion pieces or personal essays that are somehow related to the book, but different from the book. That's how I think of content. It's like the written material for writers. It's written material that's adjacent to your art, but I don't think of content as art. And actually this week, I don't know if you saw this, there was this really interesting Substack post by a woman about why she's leaving YouTube. She was a cooking...
Carla Lolly Music.
Yes.
From Bon Appetit, formerly.
So she had this whole highly produced cooking show out of her own home. She was spending like $15,000 a month producing it. What was so interesting to me about this piece was she referred to it as her art.
Yeah.
And I was like, wait, I don't know that a cooking video, I don't know if I would define a cooking video on YouTube as art. It's skilled and it takes talent, but is it a work of art? So I separate art from content. And I think writers' task in the creator economy is to grow their audience by producing content that their readers want to see and hear, so that those readers will find their art, their books.
See, okay, that's interesting because I with Carla's content, let's say, I think in one case part of the strategy here was that the videos would drive sales for her book, in that case it is content meant to promote another product. But I think for some people, like the YouTube video is the art and it is the expression, and maybe I think part of the definition here is it's about how they're making money. So like if you're just posting a video to YouTube and you're only making money through YouTube's AdSense, then sure, it's maybe art, but I think it becomes more art if you're able to sustain some kind of living off of it. Also with like a Patreon subscription that people are paying you for, and then you're given the time, because I think part of what makes it art is the labor put into it and like the rigor and the editing, right?
Yeah, it's the labor and the intention and the craft. Like I'm a decent writer, but I don't think my Substack posts are as good as my novels. Like I think my novels are much better. My novels just take more time and they're read by readers, and I do multiple drafts. I don't do multiple drafts on my Substack post. My Substack post, it would be like if you and I have a conversation and it's transcribed, like that's how I think of a Substack post. It's me talking directly to you. It's not mediated by anything. I feel like there's more distance between art and the recipient of that art, where content is meant to actually create an intimacy between the creator and the audience.
We're talking about instant ramen versus ramen that's made with like a 24-hour broth and handmade noodles.
Right, where you have to wait 2 hours in line.
Yeah, exactly.